and night was fast approaching. So let me say, from my own view, I would say if in a ward where we have 400 people, at most, the number of persons that will vote in that ward won't be more than 200.
Okay, Joy, you mentioned more than a couple of the challenges that they encountered today. What about the successes? Were there more complaints in the general conduct of the elections than
the positive side to it?
Than hits? Yeah.
Normally, when in a situation like this, people always talk about the problems, the challenges, complaints everywhere. Nobody will even remember to talk about the successes. But I tell you, in generally north and south, the card reader worked in some voting points, especially generally north, about that precisely. According to what I gathered, about at least 50 or 100 persons, were accredited using the card reader. I can say authoritatively because the person that told me is reliable. In fact, his own accreditation was done with the use of the card reader.
Well,
so it was a major success, so to speak.
Okay then, Joy, thank you very much for the update on the situation in Anambra State, the various senatorial districts, and of course explaining to us why the governor was that upset. We'll be returning to you in the course of the program, so just stay put. That was Joy Odinye, our correspondent in Anambra State, and well, it's like a litany of misadventures. The governor's fury, embarrassment, anger, the fact that up till maybe 3 p.m. nothing was happening in some areas. In areas of high turnout of voters, the card reader failed, and then of course, what actually did catch my attention or fascinated me more was the fact that in some areas, some people said, look, even if we're going to stay here till morning, we must be accredited and we must vote.
And what I would like to know is that the governor got to his polling booth and he couldn't, there were no INEC officials there. So are they covering their bases?
Well,
which to a certain extent
okay,
that, the governor's going to be here.
Let's even start from the top. In the president's own polling unit, the card reader had problems. Maybe it just singled out the president for attention at that moment.
Maybe that was a factor beyond anyone's control.
I mean, there was something being said about card readers, which, pointed to the fact that perhaps the training, also that INEC staff took a few things for granted. In a few places in Lagos, it turned out that the reason the card reader wasn't working because the film, that normally covers the place where you put the thumbprint had not been removed.
That's one.
And in the particular polling booth, there was a heated argument between the INEC officer and a young man who was trying to tell her, listen, you need to remove this thing to be able to use it.
That's elementary. Right?
And exactly, and she kept insisting, no, that's not how they taught us to do. They just said put the finger, but eventually they persuaded her to try. And the reader started reading. So I guess INEC maybe took a few things for granted when it was, doing education for the people that were going to run this card readers. I don't know.
As a witness to that, we got a WhatsApp message saying that they should remove the film. That was done. Still, the machine did not work. And then somebody, I don't know from where the information came, that the machines were using Glo SIM cards. That they should remove the Glo SIM cards and go somewhere to collect MTN SIM cards. Now, it was making the whole thing complicated. But more importantly, the lady that came with the machine knew nothing about the machine. He knew nothing. She couldn't even manipulate the date to reflect 29th March. So in a situation like that, even if the machine had worked in any manner, I'm not sure that it would have effectively performed the function of accrediting voters, ultimately.
Before we went on break, you asked you a very important question, which was that Do you feel, in your view, under these circumstances, therefore, that the credibility of the elections have been marred?
In a place like my own point, my own voting point, it's been mad. Let's remember that on the road to voting that came up today, there had been landmines. And I was asking myself, if we had had this election 6 weeks ago, it would have been far, far worse than what happened today. Because they had a 6 weeks extension to have perfected their games, to have crossed their T's and dotted their I's. But eventually, it was like nothing was done. Because the lady it was like she was looking at the machine seeing the machine for the first time. Those of us who had IT knowledge and experience were now helping them out, do this, do that, and they were adamant.
So as though she had no training, that's what you're saying?
No, inadequate training.
Inadequate training.
Inadequate training.
That's another factor we may be looking at, inadequate training for the INEC officials. But for now, we are also being joined on the line by an election observer and, of course, human rights activist, Dr. Joe Oke-Odumakin. Dr. Odumakin, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good morning.
A very good morning to you. Well, what has been your experience when the elections began yesterday?
Well, it's been that of much optimism. I can see that our people were determined for a violence-free election. And very early in the morning, as I sat out with my team, I could notice that the electorates were the ones that were out. As early as 6 o'clock, we see all of them at different polling units, waiting patiently for INEC officials. A lot of them came in after 11 o'clock. And some of them, in some of the polling units, did not even surface at all. A few of them also came in around 6 p.m. But it's just, the beginning of the whole process. And as we continue to get reports from all over the country, one could then eventually reach INEC. But as I speak with you, I'm still at Magodo, where electorates were around as early as 6:30 a.m. and up to 2, 3, 4, and even 6 o'clock, they were still waiting, and no official was in sight. But as they became more apprehensive, some of the INEC official office around 7 o'clock. So around 7:20, they had to start accreditation and voting simultaneously manually. So as we speak, voting ended around 12 midnight, and then the results of reps and Senate has been announced. So the coalition, sorting out our coalition for the presidential result is the one that we are still waiting for. And as I speak, people are just sitting down patiently in a orderly manner. And this shows that our people are really determined for a violence-free election and also ensuring that their vote.
Okay.
Dr. Odumakin, you're quite a vocal social critic. Therefore, what do you think about the process and the credibility? What does this do, in your view, for the credibility of the elections?
I think that the credibility of the process, one cannot in totality, weigh it in terms of credibility, because as I speak, we continue to get reports from all over the country. And also, I felt a bit warned in my thought that a few minutes ago is in about 5 local government elections will continue tomorrow, and then next one people will know which polling unit. Although this is very trying moment of our period in history. I don't